Welcome to the deep dive.
All right, so you know how everyone loves that Canadian flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
The maple leafs.
Yeah.
So iconic. And we're going to do a deep dive today on the marketing lessons
Okay.
behind that flag. And I think people are going to be surprised at how many marketing lessons there are.
Interesting.
So this flag is beloved. Now it's like super popular, but back when it was created, it was super controversial. It sparked protests. It even sparked death threats
Oh, wow.
against the guy who designed it.
You're kidding. Can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine getting death threats for a design.
I know.
What was so controversial about it?
Well, so in the 1960s, Canada was going through a lot of change, and people were really attached to the old flag. It represented their history, their identity.
Right.
And so any change felt like a threat to them, and that's what we see in the sources, right?
That makes sense. I mean, people don't like change, especially when it comes to something like a national symbol.
Exactly.
It's like messing with their identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this resistance to change, right? It's not just a Canadian thing.
Right.
Marketers see this all the time.
All the time.
Think about companies that try to redesign their logos.
Yeah, or rebrand themselves.
Yeah.
And
always backfires, people freak out.
Gap.
Yeah, exactly. Gap tried to change their logo and everyone hated it.
They had to go back to the old one.
It's funny because as a marketer, you're always trying to innovate and stay ahead of the curve, but you also don't want to alienate your core customer base.
Right.
It's a tough balance.
It is.
Yeah.
And, the source material that we looked at uses the Canadian flag as an example of how to have a strong vision and a clear message. And that can eventually win over an audience, even if
they're resistant at first.
Yeah, even if the initial reception is negative.
Yeah, because people can come around.
But how do we actually translate that into practical marketing advice? Well, I think the key is really understanding your target audience. In the case of Canada.
Okay.
The government, they really had to understand the desires and anxieties of the people, right? What did the old flag represent to them? What were their aspirations for this new Canada?
Okay.
And so that kind of deep understanding of your audience is crucial for any marketer, right? You need to know what your audience values, what their pain points are,
right?
What motivates them.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark.
Totally. So it's not just about changing the logo or slapping on a new design.
No, it's not about just superficial changes.
Yeah, you need a strategy. You need a narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to think about the story you're telling with your brand. What does your product or service represent?
Right.
How does it connect to your audience's values and aspirations?
And so when we look back at some of those rebranding efforts that failed.
Yeah, what comes to mind?
Sometimes I feel like those companies, they just didn't really understand their audience.
Right. Or they failed to convey a strong narrative. Why are they changing?
Yeah, they didn't explain it well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where things like market research and data analysis become super important. I'm sure the Canadian government, they didn't just randomly pick a new flag.
Yeah.
They probably conducted extensive research, right, to gauge public opinion, refine their approach. And that's what marketers need to do as well.
Totally test your assumptions.
Yeah.
Gather data and be willing to adapt if something isn't working.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes your initial idea might not be the right one.
And, speaking of adapting, we were talking about the death threats earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Against the designer, George Stanley.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of resilience
to
stay the course when you're facing that kind of opposition.
Absolutely. And I think the Canadian flag's journey is a great example of that, right? It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were intense debates, political maneuvering, and like you said, even threats.
Yeah.
But the proponents of the new flag, they persevered.
Right.
They believed in their vision, and they had the data to back it up.
So for marketers, right, that means being prepared to face resistance.
Yes.
To face criticism.
You can't please everyone.
Yeah. You need to be able to handle that negative feedback constructively and learn from it and adjust your approach.
Totally. Yeah, you have to have thick skin in this business.
But you also need to know when to stick to your guns.
Exactly. When you truly believe in your vision and you've done your research, sometimes you have to stay the course, even when it's tough.
But how can a small business, replicate that kind of campaign?
That's a good question.
That the Canadian government ran?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the scale is different, right?
Right.
But the principles are the same.
Okay.
A small business can still conduct market research. They can use surveys, focus groups, social media analytics.
Okay.
They can build a narrative through their website, their social media content. And most importantly, they can demonstrate resilience by listening to customer feedback and adapting their product or service accordingly.
Yeah, I think this whole deep dive has been really insightful.
Yeah, me too.
It's amazing to think that like the Canadian flag's story is not just about like a piece of cloth.
Right.
It's like a masterclass in marketing and branding.
It really is.
It really is.
So I'm curious, like, if you had to design a flag for your brand,
Oh, wow.
what would it look like?
That's a great question.
And how would you persuade people to embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
even if it was like radically different from what they were used to?
I love that question for our listeners to think about.
Yeah.
What symbols represent your brand's essence?
Mm-hmm.
What story are you trying to tell? And how can you convey that story in a way that resonates with your audience?
It's all about connecting with your audience on an emotional level.
Think about that journey of the Canadian flag.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that bold decisions, when they're backed by understanding and resilience, they can lead to lasting success.
Absolutely.
And that is it for our deep dive.
Awesome.
See you next time.
See you later.
Step right up, we're diving in. Marketing tales from where to when. Curious facts that make you grin. Welcome, friends, let's begin. From lost campaigns to clever schemes, broken dreams and wild extremes, the lessons learned through all extremes. Truth is stranger than it seems. Oh, it's the deep dive you gotta hear. Marketing tales from far and near. The lessons wrapped in laughter clear. Oh yeah, we're taking the rear. Marketing myths and legends bold. Stories better than gold. Every tale is retold in ways you've never been told. From the quirky ads gone haywire to campaigns that catch fire. Every story to admire. Tune in and let's aspire. Oh, it's the deep dive you gotta hear. Marketing tales from far and near. Lessons wrapped in laughter clear. Oh yeah, we're taking the rear. From lost campaigns to clever schemes, broken dreams and wild extremes, the lessons learned through all extremes. Truth is stranger than it seems. Oh, it's the deep dive you gotta hear. Marketing tales from far and near. Lessons wrapped in laughter clear. Oh yeah, we're taking the rear. Oh yeah, we're taking the rear. Oh, it's the deep dive you gotta hear. Marketing tales from far and near. Lessons wrapped in laughter clear. Oh yeah, we're taking the rear. Oh yeah, we're taking the rear.